Hello, everybody, and welcome. Get in, strap up, hang on. You're getting ready to ride with the best of the best in the Midwest. It's the Farmer Tan Podcast.
Nailed it.
Like that?
No, I liked it.
All right, everybody. I am Jake in the 308. To my right is our co-host, my buddy, and the brains of this outfit, Jared Aiden. What's going on, man?
Oh, man, nothing much. Just getting into the early phases of harvest. So luckily it's a slow break-in, so we're not hitting it full on yet. How about you?
Yeah, well, we have been kind of busy. Got all of our bean hay put up, and so that turned into a pretty good little project, which, I mean, it normally does. And so we're feeling good about that. Yeah, I was trying to think. Well, I sort of feel like I haven't hardly talked to you since we cut the last podcast. Seems like we've been awfully busy, but now when you ask me what I've been doing, I can't think of it.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. I mean, I saw something once that I thought was funny and not exactly true, but it just becomes more and more true every time. Is just farming and ranching is just saying next week won't be as busy over and over until you die.
Yeah,
and I can see that now.
Yes, that is kind of how I feel as well. But you guys, you're running on wet corn?
Yeah, we started on wet corn and hauled it to a feedlot over here in Gothenburg. So it's a longer truck, but works out good because we can get our dry land out, prevent some of that head shelling that's kind of so common on dry land because it usually goes fast and falls like this that are dry above average temperatures. And man, we're accustomed to wind, but it has just been an onslaught of wind and heat here lately. We were kind of hand testing some. The corn was at 30 to 32% last Monday, and I think we got started on Wednesday, and by last Friday it was down to 21. So that was on some irrigated ground. So we're kind of on the dry side of wet corn with what we're on now, but I think they're getting enough wet corn in. We're just kind of blending it off. We're down to 19% or so, but dryland yields been better than years past. Easily, I'd say above average. So far, so good.
Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear for sure. And it sounds like it's drying off real quick for you.
Oh, man, even from the morning to the afternoon, we probably lose a point and a half. So.
Yeah. So harvest ready or not, harvest is coming in a hurry for everybody.
And I mean, we had that first day of harvest woes and got that out of the way. We kind of noticed after getting the combine back and got going, we're like, man, there's just a lot of trash flying everywhere, building up on the sides, and got to looking, and behind the grain elevator, we noticed there's a rotor cover missing, nowhere to be seen. So we were just blowing stuff out of the side of the rotor. So not a real efficient. I mean, make your crack about deer combines, but even that's not how they're designed.
Yeah,
that much behind.
Right. Well, you should have good pheasant population this winter.
It'll be good grazing in those that pass there. So.
Yeah, that was part of the winter uptime special.
Yeah, the food plot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we cut those forage beans down. Gosh, probably. Well, they laid for about 10 days, I guess. And so we got in on all that 90-degree weather and all the big wind, and that dried them all out, cured them pretty well. We've been doing this for probably 12 years or so. I don't even know. I've kind of lost track of how long. We started once as an experiment for fun. I had a good buddy in the seed industry who he called me one day and he's like, hey, we had somebody that had a mistake and a half a pro box of beans got dumped on top of a half a pro box of corn.
Oh.
And he's like, I clearly cannot do anything with it. If you want it, you can have it.
Oh, sweet.
And so he said, yeah, we'll take it. And so we just ran it back and forth between pro boxes a couple of times to get it blended up. And then we dumped it in a drill and we just set the drill and drilled it. And it actually worked pretty well. And we just went out and swathed it before the corn really put an ear on. And we kind of liked that. But in doing so, when we fed it, we noticed they'd go through and sort the beans out first.
Oh, okay.
And so we did a little research and realized that, actually soybeans were brought to this country as a forage crop. And so we did a little research and realized there was actually quite a few guys doing it for hay. So we kind of ventured off into that. And I have done true forage beans before. I don't really care for them. Actually, we do just a long season grain bean.
So those true forage beans, they get taller and they lodge more? Or?
So in our experience with them, they get taller. They do not put pods and grain on to nearly the extent that the grain beans do, obviously. But that's what our cows really liked. I mean, they would really go after those beans, the actual grain. The other thing I did not care for it, and it could have been maybe my fault a little bit for, for how thick I was planting them, but it seemed like they senesced a lot of the bottom leaves and the little stems off, like the bottom half of the plant. So they were shoulder high on me, but from the waist down, they were just a stick.
Okay.
And
sloughing leaves too.
Yes, yes. And so we just went back to a true grain bean, and we're going like a really long group 3 or a group 4 even. And we get along really good with that. Like the ones I was cutting this year, they were still mid-chest high on me.
Oh, wow.
I think they were an NK number dicamba bean because you get a great big fat leaf on there. I mean, you get a leaf the size of your hand, and so those work really well for us. Not that we spray them with dicamba chemistry, but they don't, because there's just enough adrift in the air that they cup. And so that's why we plant them, is that way they don't.
Playing defense.
Yep. We don't spray them with any of that, but it plays defense well. And we've just had really good luck with that. And so also the forage beans did not test as well. Like when we got all done, set forage samples in, they were not nearly as good. Some of these grain beans, which stands to reason, but we cut them about half pod fill, third to half. And they will tend to run in the neighborhood of, well, I've had them into the low 20s before on protein, and get some really good, relative feed value numbers out of them too. So anyway, so we went back to those, got them all cut, finally got them rolled up this week, and you got to treat them kind of like alfalfa. The pods will shatter, the leaves will shatter.
Sure.
And those beans will actually dry down, and they'll be about half the size of a regular soybean.
Okay.
And they stay green, but they're not all shriveled up. They're just a nice looking green, half size soybean.
So how careful do you have to be on bloat with that?
I've never had it cause a problem.
Okay.
I have fed it straight. So the reason we do it, so the farmers around here, a lot of them want you off corn stalks fairly early in the spring so they can go to farming. We're actually April, May calvers. We typically don't go to grass till the 1st of June. And so we have to have somewhere to be. So we took one of our own pivots, we planted to beans or cane, and then we'll rotate it with another pivot. But we'll plant the beans there. We'll harvest the beans about this time of year. We'll seed it back to rye. And then probably the 1st of April, when we got to get out of the last cornfield, we'll go to the rye, and then we, calve on that. And that makes a really good rotation for us. So we needed something that could basically be like a 1-year alfalfa replacement.
Yeah.
And so that's why we started doing the beans. So we treat it like alfalfa. We put it up like alfalfa. We use it like alfalfa in the rations. With that being said, I have fed straight bean bales. Never had a problem.
That's interesting. I would have figured that would have been something in a legume crop like alfalfa. You had to kind of watch that. But
Yep. I have never had a problem. And it depends what the weather is doing. Oftentimes, we try not to feed a lot in the winter if we don't have to, but when weather calls for it. And so when you get super cold or you get covered up with snow or whatever, it's not uncommon that we'll feed one bean bale and one cane bale as a ratio together, and we just put them in the processor and go.
Do you notice them gravitating towards one
They'll
over
eat
the other?
beans first.
No kidding.
Yep.
Over cane.
Yep. They will pick the beans, even cane that's put up well, because everybody thinks like, oh, cane is just nasty black, run it through the through the tub grinder. But
right.
I mean, we try to put it up well, and we've put up some really good cane. They will come to the beans first, though.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So we've had really good luck with that. Use it in our backgrounding ration. We've put it in bale rings for bulls. Yeah, it works. So
obviously, I'm dipping my toes into it. So now I'm asking all these questions while I got you on the air. So make sure you're honest.
Right. So it's right.
So yeah, trying something in the backgrounding ration this year, kind of going with some poor hailed corn silage. Figured to be kind of a good match, being a high protein, since we're not getting the energy and the protein we need out of the silage, just not your typical silage crop. So yeah, kind of curious to see how it goes.
Yeah. No, it should be good. And I hope it works. I mean, obviously I hope it works well for you. But I hope you like the beans, just where we sold you a couple semi-loads.
That's right.
It would be disappointing if you didn't, but it'd be super if you thought they were great. But yeah, so that's something we've we've played with for a long time, and we just, we get along good with it. We like it. Yield wise, I haven't got the official numbers. I haven't got any bales weighed from this year yet. About the worst we've ever done is around 3 ton. I think the best we've ever done is like 4.5, like as baled.
Yeah.
Obviously, the longer you let them go, actually your tons go up because grain is a lot of weight.
Oh, okay.
And so the farther the beans get along. And what's interesting, one year, just starting at good pod fill, I cut some, I waited till third, and I cut some, I waited till half, and I cut some, and then I waited till like they were almost like a third of the plant was probably yellow, and I cut some. And from like third pod fill to half pod fill was your best overall numbers, and it was your best overall tons. And so to me, that kind of said wait for the appropriate weather. And so when I say third to half, we just try to time it out right. But
so the agronomist in me has a curious question. Have you ever tried determinate beans like they do in the South?
I have not.
I didn't know if those would get taller or if they would match or feel a little better. I've never been around determinate beans, but
yeah, I haven't either. I don't know.
Yeah,
that would be interesting to see.
It would be.
When we first started this, we planted them, and it's good you're sitting down, but we planted them at 250,000.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you could just see the meter smoking. And and we have played around. So around here, I mean, there's a lot of guys planting 160 probably on irrigated.
It's kind of I know growing up it was never less than 200,000 seemed like.
Yeah.
And we've just kind of been playing with it, getting lower and lower and lower. I think we've gone as low as getting down to 140,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if I care to go too much lower. You get a little bit of a crust. It seems like there's just not as many beans out there to push the crust that you'd like. If you have that problem, here with pivots, it's usually not an issue. You just can fire them up a little early, but who likes running pivots that soon?
Yeah, for sure. And that's so we've kind of played with population. We started at 250 just because we just did.
But obviously you're trying to get tons. I mean.
Yep. We have dropped them. We went all the way down to 180, which was a mistake. We didn't like that. They will bush out and take up the space. Stems get bigger,
Yeah, I suppose they would.
And that sort of thing. So we've actually I would still do 250 if price wasn't an object, but seeding cost gets a little higher.
Yeah, sure.
So I shoot for 200 to 2.25 as kind of my seeding rate. I try to get as close to 200 as I can for final plant stand. And I've had pretty good luck with that. And I don't know that tons change much between 200 and 250 for what we're doing. So I don't worry about that too much, I guess. But we have had good luck. We fertilize, really good beans in the valley are in that 80, 85 bushel beans probably.
Yeah, I think the potential's out there for 90 averages. I think everybody's kind of trying to be the first one to 100 average.
Yep.
But man, it's just, I don't think anybody's really unlocked the code to top end yield on beans like they have corn.
Yeah.
I think we're still in the phase of trying things.
Yeah. I mean, and we've been growing corn a long time. They've kind of got it down to a science, so to speak. And beans are a little bit of a wild card, but that's what I tell co-op guy. Hey, I want a fertilizer rec for 80 bushel beans. And that's how I fertilize my forage beans. We do soil samples every year. And so far we either stay steady or slightly increasing on years when we have beans out there. So I'm pretty confident. I think around here, that's a pretty good way to do it. And then we just water way too much for what you would do grain beans.
Yeah. Do you throw some nitrogen in to help them, or
nope, I don't.
Above average phosphorus since you're kind of taking it, or is it just kind of just like you would for grain?
Nope. I literally tell him I want 80 to 85 bushel.
Okay. I didn't know if there's something else you bumped up.
I don't. I will, depending on what the soil test comes back as.
Right.
And we try to build it to that level and then maintain it the best we can. But the only nitrogen that goes on, and I have thought about playing with that. We obviously inoculate them, and depending on my mood and what the year looks like, we will treat them to some fashion. This year we went the full insect, fungicide, everything treatment on them, only because the piece we were on this year was actually going to be back-to-back beans. And so I went that way. But it's the only nitrogen out there is whatever's in the 1152 already. That's it. I've always been told beans will get lazy. And
I know if you do it early on, what we've started doing is kind of when they get to that full bloom, probably mid pod set, we try to shoot 10 to 20 pounds of nitrogen on over with the pivot, throw a little potassium in there. Like we're experimenting with different things. Hard to say if it's working or not. I mean, weather plays such a factor. It's hard when you do a whole field to be like, yep, that's the thing that did it.
Yeah.
When you could have been like, well, it just could have been a better weather year.
Yeah. And, so for those of you that don't know, I was a sales agronomist at Co-op for several years, and my official training is in agronomy. So did a lot of that, for quite a while. We played with a bunch of that stuff, and I could just never get to the point where I could pin it on one thing we did and say, well, that's what did it. Because, we did a lot of test plot trial stuff with, about anything you can think of. And some of it was just plain old 32. We'd go, either side dress it or we'd, blow it on through a pivot or whatever. And like you said, sometimes you'd see a bump, but then you'd repeat it the following year and then you wouldn't see the bump. So
that's exactly. It's hard to get repeatable, true things that get beans over the top. It's just, they're so weather dependent, even more so than corn for yield. I mean, temperature, all that.
Well, and a little bit of stress at the right time will cause a bean to, put on extra yield. So I will say we have seen good response from the potassium side.
Okay. That was my wife's idea. Molly she works sales agronomy, so that was kind of her thought, and she wanted to try it, and who am I to tell her no? So
what I will say on the grain side, if you could ever get a guy to put more potassium on, I mean, unless he was already at a crazy number or putting a crazy amount on, but any amount of potassium he put on, you could just, that was one thing you could see a pretty good bump from. And we try to make sure we keep that up where we're harvesting all the plant, and taking it off the field anyway. But actually what is interesting is, so this particular piece, my wife and I have been farming it since 08 or 07 maybe. And we very regularly soil test that. I mean, every year I've got soil tests every year on that farm. I was a little concerned when we started this intensive forage rotation, we were going to see our numbers go backward, but we haven't.
Interesting.
And I contribute some of that to the rye. I contribute a lot of it in general to, there is just almost always something growing out there. When the beans are done, there's maybe a month, or less, but it depends on the weather. Get the beans cut, get them baled, get them off the field, get the rye in. Sometimes that ends up being a month. Sometimes it's only a couple weeks, depends. And in like this year, we literally drilled the beans into the rye and then had Co-op, round up over the top, kill the whole thing then. So, I mean, the rye was sort of on its way out by then, but so I actually think that's
using
helped.
Cattle out there on the rye, you're getting a quicker turnaround on that nutrient recycling. I mean,
I think so.
You would assume over years, I know cow pies hit a small area, but that many cow pies over that many years, you would think it's getting spread across the field relatively evenly. I mean, near feed and water source is obviously going to be heavier, but they're taking that rye and what would take probably a year and a half to fully recycle. They're probably cutting that in half, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I will,
really good for soil health to get that quick organic matter out there.
And I will say, cows that have been grazing on rye pasture, those cow pies cover more area. So
come out like a rocket.
Yeah, distribution is more widespread. Yeah.
So getting into harvest, I had a thought this week. What would your ideal, I mean, it doesn't have to be a harvest meal, but just what would you pack in a cooler when you're going to be out in the tractor all day and you're not going to make it into the place for dinner? And I'm not saying, your ideal thing that you could get from anywhere, but what's commonly in your house, what you could realistically pack that would be in your house. How would you game plan that?
Yeah. And, that's hard because my favorite lunchbox is a lunchbox that somebody else packed.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because at 6:00 in the morning, you are not nearly as motivated as you are.
And you're not nearly as hungry as you will be at 10:30.
Yes.
Trying to hold off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at noon, well, who are we?
Do we ever make it to noon?
Who are we kidding? At 10:00, you're really hungry or bored. But, and so, and it's interesting you say that because growing up, we were not eat on the run people.
Oh, really? Okay.
We'd shut down, run in and eat. And, and we were fairly lucky. We weren't spread out. So we farmed right around home base, right around the place. And, so it really was probably about as easy to just stop and grab lunch. So when Aaron and I got married, moved out here, even here, it was a little bit that way. But as we continued to grow and do different things, like, and you know how it is, and anybody listening that's tried to orchestrate harvest, like by the time you get everybody there, like it takes an hour and a half to get everything in motion again because, well, we got to wait for the truck to get back.
Yep.
And okay, now we can all eat or whatever. And then, well, now the combine starts, and then now the grain cart guy, and well, now the truck driver guy, and so we weren't really stopping for lunch. My mother-in-law is just a tremendous lady. She was, and this was affectionately aimed her direction for sure. We called her the company cook for the longest time because she would make full-on meals and bring them to the field.
Oh, that's so.
And I don't know if it was my father-in-law behind the scenes a little bit was like, okay, like if they're not going to come in and stop, we're at least going to take it there. And oh man, some of my best memories. And so I know I'm not answering your question, or I'm taking the long way around, but calm down. We got an hour. Some of my best harvest memories are sitting in lawn chairs right at the end of the field because it didn't matter, right? Combine got to the end, combine, grain cart, they all shut it down. If we were going to bins, the truck was going to be back shortly, or the trucks. If we were going to co-op, it might be a little longer. Oftentimes we didn't wait for the trucks, but when the truck got back, he had an opportunity to sit and eat as well.
The combine got going again.
Yep. And so it worked well. And she used to make this, I think they call it Swiss steak, maybe. You do it out of cube steak and then like mushroom gravy, and you make it in a big cast iron pan and mashed taters and gravy and that. And that was one of my favorites that she brought to the field. All right. So to answer your actual question, if I'm the one that's packing the lunch, if I'm doing it, and there's going to be tons of eye rolls here, honestly, peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Huh.
Like I would make
that'll hold you over.
I would make I wasn't eating a half of one.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd make like 3 of those.
3. Okay. That sounds accurate.
And I mean, you put it in there thick, right? And then like chips are fine, but you had to take a limited portion, or otherwise I would just sit there and eat chips.
Yeah.
And so, a few chips, actually carrots or celery and like little cups of ranch dressing. I kind of like that because, you can make yourself believe it's healthier. I always looked for stuff that took a long time to eat that wasn't really overly fattening.
Right.
Right.
Because you're sitting most of the time. It's something you got to keep in mind is like, I can't just pack a cooler full of Little Debbie's.
Right.
Because I will not have the self-restraint to not eat all of them.
No. And the only way I ever kept the lunchbox like closed up till noon was if I left it in the pickup.
Yeah. If I can make it to 11, if I'm really hungry, I try to go for 11:30, but there's no... who are we kidding? It's not going to make it till noon. And
really with the advent of auto steer, like it's you turn around, you click the button, you get the steering wheel out of the way, and then you sit there and eat.
Yeah.
And I guess I should say too, for a long time, my wife was making like homemade runzas.
Oh yeah.
And she'd make different ones, right? So she would make like a runza style runza. She'd make like a pizza runza. She'd do like a hamburger and Swiss and mushroom type of thing. She'd do like a Reuben sandwich, but like in a runza. Wow. And if you wrap those in tinfoil and they were just like, we'd freeze them.
Yeah.
But if you got them out enough ahead of time that they were just cold, depending on what you were running and where you had access to, like you could hide that in the engine compartment somewhere and it would warm them up. if you were in the combine or if you were doing some tillage, like the turbocharger was dangerous because you'd overdo it.
Yeah. Avoid the electrical connections too. You want to short something out.
Right.
Yeah.
But like on the one tractor, there was a return oil line that ran back from the turbo that you could sort of pin it against the valve covers. And so it wasn't in any direct heat, but that worked well.
Okay.
And so, but honestly, in our deal, Aaron ran the combine a lot. I was actually usually in a truck. And so
trucking and eating is a different animal.
Yeah.
It is.
So I don't know what's in your.
You got to kind of pick and choose your spots. Like you almost like, all right, before I scale on, let's get the sandwich down, get to the pit. Now you got to do the next thing. And you kind of got to work it between field and elevator.
Yeah. I ate a lot less, I think, when I was trucking.
Yeah.
Harvest trucking.
Right.
Unless there was a really long line, which sometimes would happen.
Yeah.
But when I was going to the grain bins and so
that keeps you going. Yeah. Grain bins trucking is tough.
Yeah. And we could, we could hold probably 3/4 of our crop on farm.
Mm.
And so we actually went to grain bins the most. That kind of, I actually didn't eat much at all just because I was always in motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so what's in your lunchbox?
So yeah, growing up is kind of different because mom, great cook, but she was a grain cart driver at Harvest. So growing up, we still had grandpa coming down and helping, and sometimes uncles out there. The job of us boys was to kind of keep everything else going, build the electric fence for cattle, make sure they're got mineral. And then we were kind of the gophers if something needed from home, before cell phones, there's a business band radio to the house. So you get a call to base,
come on back
on deck. Yeah. So sometimes we would actually run burgers out to them, kind of pack them a lunch, but we were always kind of pack the lunch, and that's kind of continued on now that kind of on my own. So I would say what's common in my house and what I'd pack, what I would prefer. There is this, the company's called Budding. They have lunch meats, pretty cheap. They have dried beef. And so
I do like dried beef.
Yeah. So I get that. I split that in half. So one pack of those will get me 2 days. And then homemade sweet pickles on top of that, and a lot of Miracle Whip to go with it. I always say if you can still see your bread after you spread Miracle Whip, not enough. And then, if it's too much on there, well, just transfer to the top of the bun. I mean, you can never have too much Miracle Whip.
No, because if you're using the bottle or not but the jar of Miracle Whip, not a jar anymore, plastic jug, but not the squeeze bottle.
Yep.
And when it's fairly full, like a knife works sufficient, but as it starts to wane, sometimes a spoon works better.
Yeah.
And so I'm fish it out with a spoon, smear it on the bread guy, and then just slurp the spoon off.
Oh, yeah. I use a butter knife, and I will, as much as I can fit on a butter knife, that's as much as I'll put on a sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
So then after that, I usually do I think my preferred chip, not a big chip guy. I like the Pringles and those travel packs. They just seem to hold up in a lunch better. They don't get squished like the...
What flavor?
I like sour cream and onion, but the boys do too, so I get stuck with the originals a lot.
Yes.
And they always throw more of the originals in there. But,
yes.
And if I do another chip, I like the Ruffles, cheddar and sour creams.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that as well.
Man, I do like those.
Yeah.
So I do that for a chip. And then usually dessert, like those Chips Ahoy's or Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies. Those always go good. Or if Molly has something baked, I always pack that. Candy bars just got kind of too expensive for me. I kind of like them, but man, I just can't hardly justify that. So that's kind of the dinner, and a fruit. I like packing fruit if we have some banana, apple. What is odd is a banana will age 2 weeks in 3 hours in your lunchbox. It'll go in there with no speckles, and it'll come out like a banana bread banana.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I don't know what goes on in there.
Yeah.
But it'll be bruised. It'll be aged.
It seems like an apple is a better lunchbox companion.
Yeah, I can't do apples all the time.
But I do like apples.
I have gotten on to Honey Crisp, like those big ones Hy-Vees have.
Right.
Oh my goodness, those are It's hard to go back to anything.
And it's
I don't know who named it Red Delicious, but it's very Red Blah. That's the more proper name for that apple.
right.
There's nothing delicious about that pulpy thing.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, yeah. You know, it's interesting. You said, so the banana thing, banana bread is great.
Yeah.
We have a local lady in our neighborhood that makes, well, a couple of them actually, that make like a banana bar type thing.
Yeah.
Those are super good.
Goodness, I think I know one of them you're talking about.
You know, growing up, my dad would slice bananas onto cereal in the morning, and I'm even okay with that.
Oh, yeah.
But just to eat a banana, yuck. Yeah, I got no use for it.
Oh, really?
No.
I can understand it.
I like-
Texture thing, the stringy things that come off it.
Yeah, you know, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it as an ingredient or as part of a, like, we always called it nanner pudding. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's the vanilla pudding with the vanilla wafers.
Yeah,
and
I know what you're talking
I
about.
think sometimes they chunk up bananas on top of that or something.
Yep.
I'm okay with all of that. But
It's like
just
a banana cream pie in a bowl or something.
something like that, kind of. And even banana cream pie is okay if I don't think it's
And I
coconut
would
cream to
prefer
start
a
with.
banana be less than ripe than overripe. Like, I'll take a slightly green banana. It's probably a texture thing more than flavor. So, yeah, I would say that is the dinner course. And then to get me through the rest of the day, I like wheat thins. That's a solid snack. And I found these hint of salt wheat thins because my complaint was always they're a little too salty. I don't pack enough to drink to keep hosing down salty wheat thins or cheat. I mean, I don't know. Cheez-Its are probably a second.
I do. Like the white cheddar Cheez-Its, those are good.
Those are a little too much for me. They used to make
they're just right.
smoked cheddar Cheez-It.
Oh, yeah.
And that was delicious. And then I usually another fruit. And then, there's Little Debbie here and there. I try not to do that all the time. But I would say that's a pretty solid harvest lunch. And I usually try to throw
Like
maybe one other thing, granola bar. Or,
How big is your lunchbox, though?
Pretty small. I try to keep it small so I don't put too much in there. Mini can of pop and then a Gatorade or something.
I could never get more than one meal in a lunchbox.
Oh, really? You just get dinner and that's it.
Yeah, because even if it was 2 meals worth of food, it was all gone by 1:30 anyway.
Yeah, you got to learn to ration. Oh, I'd say trail mix. That's another solid thing to throw in a box.
Aaron likes Triscuits. Those will last.
Okay.
Those will last a long time just because they are so terrible.
I was gonna say that's probably like straw in the ration, isn't it? Just kind of something to sit in your gut,
I think
keep you from eating anything.
she
else.
gets these they're like an olive oil sea salt one,
I
and
don't know.
those are okay.
Yeah, when they start throwing herbs in there,
I actually like that better though.
do you?
Yeah,
It's been a long time since I've really
'Cause
delved into the Triscuit world.
to me, a plain. Do you remember? Maybe you don't, but when shredded wheat came in that big old biscuit, like not frosted mini wheats.
Okay, I don't think I ever had that.
Okay, so my dad ate that. It was just old school shredded wheat. It came in this big old biscuit thing. There was 3 of them in a package, and there was however many packages in a box. And he'd get 2 out and crush them up, and then milk on top. And it sort of tasted like straw.
Yeah,
And that's sort of what a plain Triscuit.
I was gonna say I always
Reminds
feel like
me
I
of?
gotta chew my cud after eating a bunch of Triscuits.
They're just not my favorite. But
Yeah.
but
But not bad. I mean, sometimes a guy needs some of that in there.
Little
You're
roughage.
Like, I don't know. I'm thinking you just ate at 11:30. It's 1:30. You're like, boy, that lunchbox might need opening. Sometimes you need that just to give you something to munch on.
Agreed.
To keep you from mowing through the rest of it.
yeah. But club crackers, I like those.
Those are
And
delicious.
I'd put a sleeve of those in the lunchbox just
Yeah.
for that
Mhm.
gap fill. Yeah.
Cheese sticks are all right every once in a while.
Cheese sticks. So like beef jerky, the
Yeah.
problem is unless you make it yourself, like it is so expensive.
Oh, I know it.
Like you can burn up $80 of beef jerky in a sitting, and
That's no joke.
so I usually just look for things that take up space or are hard to chew, like take a while.
Yeah, we try to kind of plan a Sam's Club order going into harvest.
Right.
We just get a huge box of everything. And my Molly likes sandwiches a lot. And there's sometimes for meals, she's like, oh, what about a sandwich? I'm like, between planting and harvesting, I've had it with sandwiches. I do not care to eat a sandwich unless I have to pack a lunch.
So my mother growing up, she was a really good cook as well. And she always made one big meal a day. And so we were breakfast eaters. During the school year, she would usually make a hot breakfast 3 to 4 times a week, when we were younger. As we got older, maybe not as much, but I like cereal anyway, so that wasn't too big a deal. During the school year, she would make supper was the big meal because that's when we'd all be together. And in the summer, she would usually make big meal for lunch. And then, you were on your own, not on your own for supper, but
who knows when you're going to eat.
And we didn't necessarily eat at the same time either. And so we ate a ton of sandwiches. And I actually I just like a summer sausage sandwich.
Summer sausage?
Oh, yeah. That was good.
I see that tray at a party. I'm just kind of like, we'll just keep moving.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed Jared's stay on the podcast because he will not be appearing in episode 5 or 6.
Just think if you invite me to a party, it's more summer sausage for you.
So that's a good point.
Keeping me around.
I'll let you eat the fast breaks and I'll eat the summer sausage.
There we go. Boy, that took on a life of its own, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently somebody listens to the podcast, at least one person, because I found Reese's Fast Breaks in the cup holders of the truck, in my pickup, in my desk, in the office, like hidden in places where I would be.
I mean,
I opened up the center console in the truck today. There were some in there even, which
I'm starting to think you're onto something here. I mean, I'm thinking about it, just bashing stuff I don't like on here, so people start leaving them for me anywhere. Like, boy, I sure hate Little Debbie Swiss cake rolls. I sure hope nobody leaves a bunch of those later.
You're gonna find a roll of summer sausage.
Boy, I'd be so mad. Oh gosh, just chuck that out the window.
No, Oh man, I'm sorry. I think this is where we take separate roads. I just
did you take a break?
A fast one.
Well played.
Good times. So thinking about lunch and harvest and all that. So I don't know if you remember, I don't even know what phase of life you would have been in 09.
Do you want to know or?
Well, I am kind of curious.
Okay. That would have been my senior year of high school.
Okay. So you would remember then. 09, Harvest 09 was a struggle.
Oh man. Yeah, I think because I would have started college. I would have graduated May of 09. And I remember coming back from college, probably Thanksgiving break. And we were still picking corn.
Yeah.
And I actually remember we went out in the morning, and I remember that through college. It was from the start of October through the end of April, more 20-degree days than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it stayed in the 20s.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly.
Yes.
And high humidity, the corn wouldn't dry. So I remember I was home, I was going to drive the grain cart, kind of help out, give Mom a break. Dad was out there with the weed burner trying to thaw out the chaffer and stuff.
Yeah, melt the sieves out.
Yeah, and had enough excess propane build up in that kind of compartment of the combine that all of a sudden just big bowl fireball whooped out of there. And he thought, it might be enough of that.
And you're ready to go.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's quite thawed out, but yeah, it's just kind of one big little woof. And
yes, and so, and I don't remember, I sort of don't remember why now. If it seems like there was a bunch of wildfires maybe that summer. And so we had so out in this part of the world, when somebody, California or Canada, depends where the jet stream is, and it'll get really smoky out here.
It will.
I mean, it'll look really hazy, almost overcast even. And I sort of remember, I think that summer being that way.
Okay.
But crops were slow. They were just slow for whatever reason. We actually got snowed on cutting beans that year, which beans were later than normal anyway.
Oh, that'd be miserable.
We cut beans, like actual run time, for less than 10 days. And it was sometime in November. Like, we actually had a couple fields of beans that got snowed on 3 times. It was snowing in like October, like mid-October.
Oh, well, yeah, I know it.
And so anyway, harvest was a mess. And so we finally got started picking corn, which we got done before Christmas. And that sounds kind of silly, I'm sure, to a lot of people. And normally we were done
by Halloween. A lot of times everybody's goal.
And if it was a slow harvest, you were still done first week or 10 days of November, probably.
Yep.
And I remember, we were still picking corn on Thanksgiving, and I kind of made a deal with everybody, like, we aren't going to pick Thanksgiving Day, but like her family was having a big Thanksgiving, like I don't remember now if it was ahead of Thanksgiving or behind, but I'm like, look, like if we will stay together and keep picking corn, like, we can be done for Christmas. We can take Christmas off. Like, we'll quit for Thanksgiving Day, but we got to keep moving. And so we did. We just kept picking it, and we actually did. We got done. Well, we got done the same day UNL graduates, whenever that is in December, like the 10th ish.
Yes.
It was a miserable. Corn was wet. Like, you're talking about stuff being 19 now. We were picking stuff the end of November, 1st of December. That was still 19.
That's what I remember is like 19 was a go. If you could get into 19, you were just taking a drying charge. I mean, and the elevator would only take corn for the morning.
Yes.
The dryer they couldn't keep up with the dryer. So that slowed down harvest even more.
Mm-hmm.
And, it wasn't really a part of that. Like I said, his first year of college, so I wasn't there for all of it, but that's it isn't amazing how weather kind of runs on a pattern. For here, we're on every 10 years because you think about 2019.
Yeah.
The closest thing to 2009 we had, years ending in 9 seemed to be wet, and then years ending in 2 were miserably dry.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And yeah, so we were, I don't know when and you're right. It was 20 degrees for highs. I mean, we were plugging everything in, grain cart, tractor, combine,
April
trucks. I mean, just everything was, I have almost never plugged a combine in.
Yeah.
And we were plugging them in. I remember a neighbor, they'd go out and start it and throw the thrasher and everything like in gear as they drove to the field to give everything a chance to get warm. We'd fire it up and just throw the thrasher in gear and let it sit there and run at the end of the field or whatever for a while. But anyway, so to tie that to your lunch thing, I don't remember what part of harvest, but harvest was getting long in the beard by then. And we had this red heeler named Beth Dog. And she was the best. I could tell you Beth Dog stories all day. She was the best dog ever. And she loved to go trucking. And so I was trucking. Aaron was running the combine. Her granddad was running the grain cart yet. And then we had another guy running the other cart. And anyway, we had 2 semis, and I was just jumping between them because, I mean, like you said, we were getting a load a day to town, and then we'd go to bins the rest of the day, or anyway, whatever. So I was coming back, and I called we've got a local bar in Brady, and they make really good steak sandwiches. And so I called and I ordered steak sandwiches and fries for everybody when I left Gothenburg. And so Brady's 10
miles ish,
15 miles or whatever it is, 10 miles. So got there. Yep. They had them done, had them all boxed up, ready to go. So grabbed them, threw them in the truck, got out to the field, distributed them all out to the crew, grabbed mine, got the dog, all the other stuff, went to the next semi, set it on the running board.
Oh no.
And went and tarped the truck. Running board was big enough that DOG got up on the fuel tank running board, had got the styrofoam box scratched open. Harvest was so long, even the poor dog was ready for something different, and she ate like half that steak sandwich.
Man, that'd be depressing.
And they had it cut in half, and it wasn't like I was not in the mood to try to salvage part of it.
No.
And so out of spite, like, I threw out the other half. I wouldn't even let her have it. I'm like, listen here, dog. I think that's the only time I was ever actually really mad at her.
I just think it's funny.
And
I can't have it. Ain't nobody gonna have it.
No. Yeah. Probably the thing to do would have been just let her finish it.
Right.
Nope. You had your half. You ruined the rest of it. Threw it out. And then she did that dog thing. Like, she sat in the passenger side and like tried not to look at me.
That was unreasonable.
And, so anyway, that was 09. And actually another one, and this I did not get to be there for it. It was relayed to me after the fact, but I was in town, I was getting up at like 4 a.m. to get the truck and get in line so that we could get one dumped, and I could, because we couldn't hold it all.
Yeah.
So we had to get the one, but we were afraid, like, if we fill all the bins now and then we have to go to town, like, it might be April before we're done. Right. So we would try to get as much as we could a day, which was usually just one anyway. So I was gone doing that, but Grandpa Dale, he was running a tractor and grain cart, and we had an 8830 Ford front wheel assist. Aaron never cared for it much. I kind of liked that tractor, but it was cold. that tractor had been around quite a while. So I think, valve cover gasket was leaking a little bit. We had it pulled up to the bin site with some other stuff, had a Magnum and the combine and some other stuff all plugged in. And combine started, the Magnum started. Ford didn't want to start as much. So they whiffed a little ether in it and battery just wasn't going to get it done. So they pull the pickup up there and put jumper cables on it. And Grandpa Dale does the most old man thing ever. Clips the battery cables on, instantly tries to start it. Come on. You got to give it. Transfer of electrons doesn't happen that fast. And so anyway, so he tries, no, it wasn't going to start. And so Aaron says, hey, Grandpa, why don't you get out, get in the pickup where it's warm. Like, we'll sit here and wait, okay, yeah, that's probably right. So battery was under the door. And so he's getting out, and he's an old guy by now. Gets his feet tangled up in the jumper cables.
Oh, no.
So then he starts to fall. Well, so there's a grab rail on the hood like the old Deers used to have.
Right.
Kind of had one of those. He grabs that and he goes to catch himself with his other hand, but his other hand was still holding, the supersized can of John Deere ether or whatever.
Oh no.
So he's fallen. So now he's fallen. That's the immediate danger.
Yeah.
Goes to catch himself. He slams this can of ether down on the step. Well, as steps are, they've got tread cut in them. Well, he stabs a hole in the ether can, and it's like a full can of ether. So now it discharges, poof, ether everywhere. And as he's tangled up in the jumper cables, he rips the positive off, and it arcs against the step. And woof, like there is a ball of fire, all of it. So Aaron's like, oh no, Grandpa fell. And then she's like, oh no, now there's a fire. And so leaky valve cover gasket with a little corn chaff stuck to it. You couldn't do this in 100 years if you needed that fire to stay warm and save your life, but it lit
the
oil on fire. So now Aaron's like,
so many things going on.
So she's trying to get a fire extinguisher drug out of the tractor, and then she's like, now she's grabbing like handfuls of snow, but she's also got one of those. I don't really like this tractor anyway. Like maybe we should Except she's like, but we got to finish harvest. Like so anyway, I think she ends up like shoveling enough snow on it. It puts it out, and Grandpa Dale, he gets back up. And for whatever reason, in all the melee, like it scorched his hair.
Oh man!
But he was unhurt. Other than that, whatever reason, climbs back up, hits the button, vroom, thing takes right off. Right. So back in the day, early on, we decided we put those great big stainless steel water fire extinguishers, and we mounted those mounting brackets on the grain carts. So that there was always a big stainless steel water extinguisher on the grain cart. The combine had, I think we had one either in the cab or on the ladder. We had one back in the engine compartment. Yep. But we figured there's almost always going to be a grain cart with the combine.
Yep.
The problem was that year, like we had never, yes. And so we had taken them all off and drained them because looking back, I suppose we should have put RV antifreeze in them or done something, but we didn't know what to do. And anyway, so then when we actually needed the fire extinguisher, there wasn't
I was going
one.
to say at that point in 2009, I think everybody's thought is like, if this just all wants to burn down, just do it. Like,
we're going to let her burn.
Yeah, just put it down. Put us out of our misery.
So I guess then my question to you is, so that 2009, that was the first year that we really, I mean, we put up enough hay that sometimes we work late, but that was the first year I remember like we went all night on some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if wet corn, you probably can't go all night on that because the feedlot's like, no, that's enough for today. But are you historically late runners or just put in a solid 12 and then shut her down?
I'd say the solid 12. Unlike you, we didn't have as much bin storage as we did acres and aging bins at that. So it wasn't like, I knew Dad said growing up, they dried a lot of corn. We never ran dryers. So it was corn had to be at the right moisture to go to the bin anyway. And we would basically go till dark or a little past on that. But no, we're more try to get going by 9 o'clock, have the trucks preloaded. So by the time the trucks dump first thing in the morning, get back to the field, we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
So I never had to go late nights. I'm sure they did at some points. We were just always able to, try to put in a solid 12, go as early as we could. That was kind of always our key, is to get started quick so we don't have to go late in the season and not have to put in those kind of days. I would say late nights are more of a planning thing. I have done all-nighters, late nights planning, but no, harvest. I did work for someone, kind of ran into it was wet late October, and it's just too muddy to go, and we weren't getting the drying days. It stayed overcast. So I do remember we finished up a couple mornings. We would go out at 1 or 2 in the morning when the ground froze.
Yep.
And we'd pick until it started thawing out again. And we did that for a couple days. And that's probably the extent of my late night harvesting.
I know. So in 2009, like you said, we had been harvesting so long by then that honestly, by 10 o'clock, we were ready to shut her down, but whatever day that was. So my brother was a senior that year, and he was graduating in December, and I wanted to go, but I couldn't leave if we weren't done picking corn, because that was also kind of important. And so the morning of the last day, I said, we are getting done today. Like, I do not care. We're getting done. And I don't remember now what time I went out and got started. I think they were picking by 9 o'clock probably. And by then we were running to some bins. We'd actually found a guy that had a couple spare bins, and so we rented them from him. And so we got started picking corn, and, it actually went really well all day. By then, I don't know how many times it had snowed. Like, we were picking in the snow.
Oh, man.
And so anyway, but it was not actively snowing, so that was okay. So we're picking away, and I think we stopped at like 5 and like fueled the combine and stuff back up, and kept going. Anyway, we dumped the last load. Erin went with me on the last load, then got all done. She went with me. We dumped it, took the auger down because we were in this other guy's yard and whatever. And I think we got home and crawled into bed at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, man.
And slept for a couple hours. And then I got up and went to Lincoln to be with the family. And Erin went and started putting in electric fence because like we had to get cows out on stalks.
Yeah.
And I mean, now Christmas is coming. And so like we kind of got to get this done anyway. So then it would have been in 10 or 11. I don't remember, but 2009 was still very fresh in everybody's memory. And so we had been running hard. We were getting kind of towards the end, and they were talking snow. And we weren't terribly late. It was like the first snow of the year, but now everybody's gun shy.
Exactly.
And we're like, no, we're not doing this again. So the one night we ran till midnight and got that field done, or almost. Got started on the next one in the morning, and that was the night it was supposed to snow. And so we said, okay, we're going to run until we get snowed out. We were there at the main place. We were grain carting to the grain bins, had an auger, set up to the bin, gravity box into the auger. We were just pulling grain carts into the yard, dumping them. And it was probably 3 in the morning, and it still was not snowing. And like one guy we had working for us, like I see that it was empty, tractor and grain cart, but it's got a weird arc going across the field, like nowhere near the combine. I'm like, what is he doing? And get on the radio, like, what's going on? He's like, I got this big old raccoon. I'm trying to chase it down, I mean, just trying to stay.
Keep himself entertained.
Yeah. I mean, trying to stay with it, Erin's running the combine. She's getting tired. I'd pull in, and we kind of got everything timed out. So that auger just kept running. Pull in, I'd get everything run off as quick as I could, and then I'd fly back out to the edge of the field, and then I'd park where the lights would shine in the cab when she got close. I'd try to catch a little nap or something. And finally, this is stupid. Like somebody's going to get hurt. Yeah. And so, all right, we're shutting her down. Okay. So we all go home. Don't set any alarm. I mean, they're still talking snow. Wake up in the morning. It was probably 8, I suppose. get up, look out the window. You've got to be kidding me. Bright sunshine, no snow.
And that's how it goes.
I'm like, you call him and tell him that he needs to come to work. Aaron's like, I ain't calling him. You call him. Because we told him, like, don't worry about coming. Like, it's going to snow. We're not going to run tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Nick was the guy's name. So I called Nick and I'm like, hey, it didn't snow. And he's like, you're going to have to give me an hour. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Like, let's meet at 10 and we'll. But I'm telling you, in those 2 days, we picked a pile of corn because we knew that storm was coming, and man, we're gonna.
And that's, I mean, rain days in the summer and spring, you're just kind of like, all right, they're really talking rain that day. You know, let's just go hard. I can rest that day.
Yep.
And then you'd wake up and you're like, 10 hundreds.
Yeah. Well, and so that's a little bit what we ran into on this bean hay. So it was ready to go. We got it put up, no rain.
We're watching radar and I'm like, well, it ain't getting us, but it looks like it's heading for some bean hay.
And so that was one of those. I went till about 2:00 in the morning. And so Erin had been raking for me. And I kind of told her, like, I don't rake up more than what we think, because I do not want it raked and getting rained on.
Yeah.
And so finally she's like, well, how much more do you want? And I'm like, I think I got enough net wrap to do another 120 bales, and then I'm out of net. And like, I don't think we're going to get it all tonight anyway. And it was going to start getting tough.
Yeah.
So she quick raked up enough. I'm like, you can go home, go to bed. And so I think I got that all baled up at 2. And yeah, went home, went to bed, got up in the morning. It was fine. And so quick raked the rest and got that all baled up, and it was good. But there's been a couple times we've run on that stuff all night because, well, it is like alfalfa. So it'll dry and shatter. And I mean, if you get it tough, and then somewhere around 1:00, if you get a little breeze that starts coming up and it stays about perfect. And there's been more than once I've watched sun come up from the baling tractor.
So I'm going to see if this is kind of same way you feel about those nights or not. Getting to midnight, not terrible. I think you're still kind of running on, yeah, we're going to knock this out. We're being so productive. Midnight, 5, well, that's a lonely time. That passes really slow. I'd say that's the hardest part because you're just waiting for morning, trying to get there.
Yeah.
And man, it's a lot of coffee. That's the only time I'll drink energy drinks is when going all night. Just the sugar and caffeine they pack in those things. I mean,
well, and I will go one further. I will say, like, from 2 to 4 is the worst.
It's tough
because that, like you said, up to midnight, no big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And then midnight to 2, you're like, oh man, like
you're still maybe running on that.
I'm hanging in there. We're getting some farming done. And that 2 to 4, you're like, I am the only person in the entire Midwest that's awake. Like, this is ridiculous.
And it's just because, I mean, you have, going through the day, I feel like you kind of have a sense of how long time's passing. Even if you haven't seen a clock since 9 in the morning, you're kind of like, I bet we're in that 1 to 2 range.
Yep.
You don't have that at night. I mean, there's no, you just kind of look over at the clock. You're like, I think 2 hours ago, it was 10 minutes ago.
Yes. Yeah.
It passes so slow. You run out of steam. You run out of that enthusiasm. You start questioning your life decisions at that point.
Yeah.
It's like, is this even worth it?
Yep. And you're sort of thinking to yourself, like, I should quit. Mm-hmm. But now that all seems like I've stayed up this long. Now it's all for naught if I quit.
Exactly. It's like, I've just wasted. Yeah, I've already announced it to people. I'm going to go through the night.
Yeah.
Now we got to
can't back out on that. And like you said, if you get to 5, then like radio shows, like you get the early morning like radio show comes on,
and also unique thing is if there's ever a time you might be okay with a breakdown, it might be in that 2 to 4 range because you can be like, what can you do? Everybody's closed. Might as well just go to bed.
Yeah,
nothing breaks down in the middle of the night.
No,
I mean,
or if it does,
never catch a break.
Or
it's like you get an excuse to go to bed. Like, I was gonna go all night. 12:30.
Yeah,
what do you know?
Flew apart, and I had to go home. Or it's something subtle, like you lose a press wheel off the planter and don't realize it.
You'll never know it.
And you're like, oh, good, I planted for 8 hours with one press wheel. Like, well, I guess we'll see. Yeah, I remember one year too. We were getting cows out to grass in the spring, and so we did that during the day. And it seems like we'd been getting a bunch of rain. I don't remember exactly what year that was, but we'd got a bunch of rain and I mean, enough rain that we couldn't even get cows out. And then it all dried up. Well, now we need to be planting. We need to be getting cows to grass. And so you can't get cows to grass at night. And so we spent all day trucking cows and then like started planting about 7:00 that night. And I think they were talking another rain shower, and yeah, just planted till we finally, I remember watching the lightning in the west, and I wanted to get the field I was on done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on. Like just another hour, one more hour. And I actually got that field done and called her quits, went home, went to bed. And it actually did rain that night. So felt pretty good about that.
Yeah. You touched on some thought that popped in my head. You don't ranch through the night ever.
You don't.
Because if you've ever had to get a critter up at dark, man, that is tough.
Calving is about the only.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't have your lights on the four-wheeler.
No.
I mean, picture yourself staring into a light and figuring out where to go. So it's just, I don't know. You hope there's some moonlight out, basically. Or what I've found is if you take a spotlight, shine it where you want them to go so they can see. But I mean, obviously you're not calling anybody to come help you in the middle of the night, your 2:00 check. So you're kind of on your own in the dark. They get a pile of cows. They're not as easy to pick out. I mean, what? Yeah, I know. That's mean. But you don't ranch through the night.
You don't. No. Calving is about the only ranch activity that you really do much of.
If I don't know anybody's like, boy, we got to bangs vaccinate.
Yeah.
Better we go through the night and do that.
We got to get
Can
this.
you imagine running the cattle through an alley in the dark?
No.
Someone's getting run over.
Yeah, which I suppose feedlot guys, though.
I suppose you get enough lights or something.
Well, and I mean, just loading out, in
That's
the middle of the night.
That's
but
true.
Yeah, they're about the only ones that have to.
That's true.
We got to get this preg checking done.
I don't know anybody.
We're gonna preg check all night.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna brand all night. Can you imagine branding with no breeze? Just
Yeah.
hacking up a lunch.
Oh no, that'd be
how the brands would look the next day. Like, boy,
that's not even on the right direction. Isn't the spear supposed to point to the tail? No,
no.
huh?
Well, chalk it up to the game.
If you squint, it's meant. But yeah, we had enough trouble with that this year, just in the daylight.
Yeah,
but,
there's some brands that I wish I could have back. And
yeah,
they're always on nice effort.
Oh, I know.
Never on the stairs.
Yeah. It's funny because I thought maybe we were unique. I know we're not, right? But you think like, oh man, we are farming so hard. We're farming harder than anybody else. And talking to my father-in-law and Grandpa Dale and stuff, and they were telling stories, and this would have been back in, probably in the late 60s, I suppose. And they had a combine that I think it was a Minneapolis Moline.
Oh, wow.
Self-propelled. And you actually, like, changing that over from one crop to another was not like switching heads and adjusting the concaves. Like, it was actually a little more work than that. But that was back in the day, everybody dried corn. And I mean, gosh, we dried corn all the way through the 80s. I mean, I remember Dad drying a lot of corn.
Yeah, hybrids have really come a long way.
That's come a long way. But back then, for sure, they dried a lot of corn. And so they had a continuous dryer set up. They had a wet bin. They had, all this stuff. And so they had enough family. They had enough crew that they would start picking corn in the morning, and they'd pick corn. They'd pick corn all day. And by about whatever time it was, 4:00, 5:00 in the evening, they would have the wet bin clear full. They'd caught the dryer. They'd bring the combine in. They'd switch it over to Milo. Those guys would go home. The next guys would jump on it, and they'd cut Milo all night.
Man.
And then they'd quit. They'd switch it back over to corn. By then, the wet bin on the dryer was empty. They'd start picking corn.
Milo with no breeze.
Can you imagine?
Wow.
We did grow some Milo, and I never had much luck with it after dark. Like,
that would be tough. I imagine.
Well, it'd literally get tough. Yeah. And it just, once the sun went down, we about had to shut down. But I mean, that was different time, different weather.
Right.
And I don't know what time of year it was. Like, maybe they were late enough in December.
I say maybe they were doing a row crop head. That might make it easier than
Yeah. I don't know how they were set up, but yeah. So you think like, oh man, Dale, have you ever seen anybody, farm like this? And he's like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And actually we used to switch the combine in between. So like, come back when you really think you're hot stuff.
I know.
But I don't know, if I could go back and do anything, and I tried to soak that in as much as I could. but I would go back in time and listen even better.
Right.
At the time I thought I was doing well, and I think I did, but my father-in-law has passed on. Aaron's granddad has passed on. Like, those links to that generation and those stories, it's not there like it used to be. And so one of my favorite, Grandpa Dale was a smoker, smoked forever. He told me one time he outlived 3 doctors that told him to quit smoking. and so, which incidentally, and I'll probably tell it, Aaron's grandmother's still alive. I bet she doesn't listen to this, so we should be fine. Doing stuff for Christmas and needed presents. And that was when Grandpa Dale was still helping with harvest. And so I knew exactly what brand of smoke he smoked because, well, he smoked in the grain cart tractor, much to our chagrin. But you're not going to tell an 80-year-old guy. You
can't get picky with harvest help.
So I knew exactly what. She's like, I don't know what we're going to get Grandma and Grandpa for Christmas. And I said, well, do you got an idea for your grandma? And she's like, well, yeah, kind of. And I was like, you do that. I got Grandpa Dale. Don't worry about it. So went into town, went to the convenience store, got him a whole carton of the smokes that he smoked. Brand new lighter, wrapped it up nice. And he opened that. And you want to talk about an old man that got a little kid grin. And he opens the end of the carton and realizes, like, it wasn't like a new necktie stuffed in a cigarette carton.
Yeah.
It was actually legit. Full of, he was so excited. But I guess from what I understand, he went out in the garage and like lit the first one and just hung out until he'd smoked them all. And Grandma said, don't you ever do that again. And I'm like, you know what? He was 80 some years old. He could have bought anything he wanted. What do you get a guy like that? You want him to appreciate it. You want him to use it. You want it to be meaningful. I guarantee you he used all of my Christmas present. But anyway, so he was a smoker. But some of my best memories, I'd be out in the shop working on something and I could smell that smoke coming. And I knew Grandpa Dale was on his way to the shop. And when he needed a smoke break, he'd come out in the shop and he'd lean on the vise and he'd smoke and he'd tell me stories about the old days. And, he'd smoke one or two and then, okay, well, I'm leaving. He'd go back, do whatever he was doing or go back to the house or if he had to go to town or whatever. And, to this day, you'll be outside at like an outside event, and somebody up breeze from you lights up a smoke. And I get that little, I think of Grandpa Dale.
How a smell can trigger memories.
It does.
It happens all the time. It's kind of strange.
And I instantly think of Grandpa Dale. And I'm like, oh man, like what I'd give to have him smoking in the shop, telling stories, again. But anyway, that was kind of fun.
Yep.
But yeah. So I don't know. What else you got today?
I was trying to think today. Oh, finally got, just parts issues post-COVID. Just kind of hit another one. Which, can we be done blaming COVID by now?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'd blame it on laziness.
But, I don't know what else to blame it on, but it took 2.5 weeks to get parts for, and it was for a variety of reasons. Nothing major. It's just kind of mix up in communication mostly. But still needing to finish up some wheat for cover crop, grazing, doing that for my brother. And we finally got that. So we basically, all three of us went out there, rebuilt basically all the row units on the drill new. It's got kind of the True V style. Got a notch disc, smooth disc, placed the hubs, discs, scraper, did all that across the drill, fixed some seed tubes, and then kind of got back after it, trying to finish that field. Didn't quite get done, ran out of seed. So that was today's project, but it feels good to be going again. That's been looming over my head for 2.5 weeks. Would have liked to have it done before we started getting wet corn. Going to have to do some cover crop after beans. So I was kind of sitting there. I'm like, man, I don't need to be replacing a hub here and there and everywhere. I just got this drill. So I kind of wanted to start fresh. So I knew when the last time all the hubs, everything's been done. So yeah, that was kind of doing all that, which public service announcement, the sun is still at a point it can sunburn you.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah. There's some heat in there yet. Yep.
Most of the time I wear cowboy hat or a cap, and I went with cowboy hat this morning, just a straw hat and routine. Not the best choice to work on a 10-inch drill. Doesn't fit in there real well. So
right.
I ditched that pretty early and worked with no hat on, which now that I think about it, I had a cap in that pickup I could have very easily dug out and put on. Didn't remember that. So got a little sunburn on the dome.
Yeah.
So
that's disappointing.
Still there, but
yeah, there is some heat in the old sun yet. We're firmly in. I don't know. We're not really into fall much.
No, I hope there is a fall.
I do too. That's my favorite time of year, and you get about an hour and a half of it is all.
Yeah, it might not be as finicky as spring, but it can be very dependent year to year.
Which I understand it. The weatherman's making it sound like fall coming this weekend. So kind of wet and cold. And
you get to this time of year, you're like, is this fall for now or fall to stay? And looking at the 10-day, it looks like we're kind of transitioning into that fall to stay.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but we're kind of getting to the end of September. It's usually that time of year where, you hit a 90-degree day, you're like, this could be the last 90-degree day.
I hope this is the last 90-degree day.
It's a little different than July. You hit stretching 90s in July, you're like, well, buckle up. This is what it is, and it doesn't feel that bad. And then now you hit a 90-degree day, you're like, boy, this just feels sweltering.
Yeah, this is miserable.
And even it has a cool breeze to it. Like trucking wet corn, I don't have AC in the truck, but windows down. It's pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Even 90 degrees, the breeze is cool enough, but still, it's just kind of, you're ready to hit those 70s, even some 60s.
Yeah.
Harvest break when you get those misty, kind of half rainy days.
Yeah, I love that.
One of the smells I think is underrated, and I thought about it a few times that summer. A freshly picked cornfield with some rain on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain that smell, but that's kind of one of those things that just sparks some memories. That's a unique smell. It takes you right back to kind of that. You've been going hard at harvest. You finally get a rain day.
Yeah.
You step outside and you can smell that.
Oh, yeah.
Freshly picked cornfield with some rain on it. That's one of those smells.
Yep. And, those wet, damp fall days are kind of frustrating if you're trying to get some harvesting done, if you need a break or you need a minute to work on something, or if harvest is done by then or whatever. Boy, that's a good day, though. I like that.
I know it. 5 days of it, kind of get over it. But I don't know if this is everybody or maybe just me or just people in the ag world, but you get an overcast day, man, the sleepies just hit pretty hard. I just tell you. So it's like those days come, you just go and harvest. I'm not much of a napper, but that might be a day where I'm just like, maybe I will.
I am a pretty good napper.
I was like, if it's sunny out, I can't calm my mind down enough to nap. But those overcast days, especially if a little spitting mist outside.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That I don't know. Body just is kind of like, here's an opportunity.
Yeah. Chance to rest. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
Then someone calls you right about when you're drifting off. So
yeah. You gotta hit that switch on the side of the phone and just nope. I'm out of range today. But
so feed store stuff picking up there with weaning coming on.
Yes, it is actually, and I feel like we're on the cusp. We're right on the edge of really getting busy, which is good. But yeah, it is. It's guys are starting to make some plans. There's some creep feeding going on. There's some guys that are going to start weaning, and so kind of making some provisions for that happening. Finally got everything in order. We've had that truck forever, it seems now, and finally got it on the road this week. Got everything squared away on it and got it going, and that's been a good. That has been a good addition.
Probably not the mad rush has been the past 2 years, though, has it? Or has it been about the same?
No, I don't know. I feel like maybe we're wading into it a little slower than the last couple years. And I don't really know what to attribute that to, because we have been, like, our back half of summer was dry. But there does not seem to be that emergency need to wean early. Like, I think we built.
kind of attribute that. Most people I know after the past couple of years stocked their pastures a lot lighter. And with our spring rains, I think even if it's all brown now, there's still a lot of grass out there that grew from the spring. They just didn't run their pastures as hard.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I think we've adjusted some of those rates,
Right.
either willingly,
which was necessary.
Yeah,
Cow size kind of keeps creeping up. You can't do the same thing you were stocking at the 70s, 80s.
right. And we either did it willingly or we did it kicking and
Right.
screaming. But one way or the other, I think there was a lot of that. And you're right. We built a lot of grass early this year, and so yeah, that we have got to get cows off the calves rush. I would
off the cows, whichever way you usually run them.
Yeah. What did I say?
I said cows off the calves.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, I mean, if you got calves that good, I mean, that kind of vigor taking care of the cows as soon as they hit the ground.
You know, the thing of it is when you got some of the best genetics around,
right.
which is only possible through the Red Angus breed.
That's right.
Yeah, those calves pop out and take care of the cow. They're
That's
so
exactly
good.
right.
So
They look themselves off, and then they get the cow up and going.
they get her up. Yeah, they get her.
Cows eating afterbirth out there.
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. They get the cow a bite of hay, and
Yeah,
they're
that's right.
yeah ready to
Get 'em
go.
up and going.
Yeah, you don't see that in the Hereford business, really. Yeah, so we've been kind of back to what you would say is more of a normal pace,
Right.
probably for that sort of thing.
Kind of
So,
weaning when you want to instead of when you have to.
yeah, I think so. And so, yeah, we've been doing bulk feed is picking up just as we start doing some creep feed stuff. We have guys that are going to start, and it's kind of an all year long, but we feed a lot of freezer beef, a lot of butcher beef stuff. But there's some guys getting those up on some feed, on some finisher now. So yeah, it will be busy here soon enough, which is good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ever been not busy.
This year has, for as wild as this year has sort of been as well, and it has probably been the tamest in the last 2 years.
Okay.
The last couple of years, you kind of hit that midsummer slump and you get some slow time. And we had maybe a taste of that this year. The last couple of years, it never slowed a bit.
Okay.
And which is good. And maybe just business in general is picking up enough or whatever. And that's all good too, for sure. So yeah, that feed store's been keeping us busy. Unfortunately, sometimes I don't get that rainy day nap.
Yeah.
Now,
That's true.
I'm still self-employed, but not now. I got to be at work
I
every day.
gotta be there. Yeah. Can't
So-
can't slap a sign on the door saying closed from 1 to when I wake up.
Yeah. Although we're getting closer, we've got some, and we've always had good help. We have for sure always had good help. Cody does an excellent job in there.
Yeah, he's good.
We're getting some more help hired, and so with that in mind, maybe I'm gonna.
Got a business meeting.
Gonna sneak out of here for a while. And I don't know, we'll see. Probably not. But I hope for Saturdays and Sundays being the cold, damp days. I know that is in complete
Sounds like we're
contrast.
getting that this weekend.
I know that is in complete contrast to the rest of America. They always get upset when the weekends are poor weather, and I do too, depending on what I'm trying to get done.
Exactly.
But when I feel like I'm caught up enough on the ranch that I could take a nap, then I hope Saturdays.
Especially now that football season's here.
Yes.
I mean, getting some game day in and being able to hang around and watch some of that. And
Yep.
watch the 11 o'clock slate. Maybe snooze off because those aren't the greatest games in the world.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, you would not appreciate this, I don't think. We did make an update to our camping situation, and which if you're
I've
interested,
been meaning to ask,
if
that went the way you wanted to or not.
Well, I think it did. Yeah, we updated the camper, run across the right deal to kind of take advantage of that. My mother-in-law used to camp with the family quite a bit back in the day. You know, it's probably not a lot of fun as, what do you want to say? Somebody with a lot of life experience, and she doesn't get an opportunity to go camping like she used to. I don't know that she's got the friends that she has. I don't know if they are interested in camping.
True.
And so anyway, we had a chance to update and get one big enough that we can take grandma with us.
Okay.
And so
that would be good.
that was part of the plan. I know she used to enjoy it, and we kind of asked her this summer, hey, if we got something big enough that you could go and kind of have a little bit of your own space, and all you had to do was throw your bag in and hop in, we'd take care of the rest. Would you be interested in going? And she said she would. So, yeah, so we had a chance to do that. Got it kind of late in the season, which is a good time to buy a camper because there's a lot of people who don't want to.
What a winter. Yep.
And so got that 2 weeks ago. Last week was super busy. We had, hand corn husking going on.
Yeah.
Down there in Grand Island, my wife has competed in that since she was young, and Owen does it and I do it, and yeah, it's kind of a good time.
Yeah.
She ended up getting second. Owen got first, and I was there too. So, but first and second get to go to Nationals, which is around Red Oak, Iowa this year.
All right.
And so that's close enough. I think we're going to go. I told Owen I'd one way or the other get in there.
It'd be hard grabbing those little ears in Iowa, isn't it?
I would think, yeah. If only they could grow good corn like we do.
Too bad. Yeah. Well, we can't all have it great.
No, we can't. And so anyway, but that was last weekend, and so we were super busy. Anyway, they want to go camping this weekend, and this weekend is equally as busy because we have Gothenburg's Harvest Festival. So the boys really want to go to the parade. There is a really good demo derby in North Platte Saturday night that we'd like to go to. The boys have been harassing me about going to a derby forever. Mm-hmm. So we're going to try to get to that. Banner Church, which is out in our neighborhood's got a big celebration thing going on Sunday that they want to go to. Owen's got flag football Sunday afternoon, Husker game Friday night. And so I kind of said, the weather's supposed to be sort of iffy. Mm-hmm. What do you say we go camping next weekend? But there looked like there was going to be a mutiny. And so I think we were just actually camping at one of the campgrounds here in town.
Okay.
That way we get
the experience.
We get the flavor of it, but we can still go do the other stuff. And to be honest with you, we have never had this camper out. It would be okay to
stay a little closer to home.
Test fire it closer to home.
That makes sense.
I think that's what we're going to do. But yeah, I don't know. I keep thinking it's going to slow down, and I guess it sort of has, or maybe we just have time to do social events now.
That's what Molly and I were talking about the other night, is just, you always fill your time. It just looks different, because we were like, when we were first married, what were we doing?
Right?
I'm like, I don't remember having time on my hands, but what could have we possibly been doing? And our kids are young enough, you're just kind of starting to get into it, but when they get to that junior high school age, I don't know how these parents do it. I mean, all the events and all that on top of everything you got going on, it's just, it never seems like you can add more to your plate, but you always make room for things. I always say it's just, I don't like the excuse, I don't have time.
Right.
We all get the same amount of time in a day. We just prioritize it in a certain way. So we're all given 24 hours. We're all busy. I just don't like telling people I didn't have time to do X, Y, and Z for you. It's just because I just believe it's kind of just saying that, what you needed me to do was not important enough. So,
I know it.
I mean, it's a common saying. I get it. But at the same time, you just prioritize things differently.
And I agree completely. Aaron and I have talked about that. We should have had an excess amount of free time and money when we first got married.
You should have had all sorts of hobbies.
Yeah, and I do know we spent a lot more time hanging out with friends.
Right, that's true.
Not just like, hey, let's run over and do this or that quick, but it's Thursday night and we're not doing much. You want to come over for supper, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that all changed with kids, and then it really changed with kids in school. But I think we've been trying to get together with you guys for a month. It just, all we're trying to do is get together for supper at a winery.
Yeah,
that's
we're not talking, 2 days. We're talking 4 hours.
Yeah, and the place we're going, which if you're listening to this and you're from the area, Old Depot winery out there, Jason and his crew, they do an excellent job. And
Definitely.
Really good pizza, really good burgers now.
I haven't tried them yet.
Yep, they're good, and that sort of thing. But it's 4 miles from our house, and we still can't get there. Yeah. So, which in all fairness, we went a lot this summer, so that's okay.
Yeah.
That's another guy. When we start getting to the point of having guests, we'll have to have Jason on here.
That would be good,
and that'll be fun. But Yeah, so I don't know where all our free time goes, but
Yep, it's got to take different
chasing
shapes.
kids,
So
chasing kids, which is good. And
yeah,
it's a season, and I have tried to be mindful of that. At some point they're gonna leave the house, and
yep,
it will never be the same. I mean, we might still get together, we might hang out. I hope they still want to be around with us, but they'll have their own lives and their own families and all that kind of stuff. And so
I've heard that kind of from around, or maybe even just podcasts or other people talking from marriage talks. But yeah, if you put too much focus on your kids, at some point when they're gone, it's almost like, oh, you kind of forget who your wife is or who everybody else is because you put so much into your kids. So being intentional about, hanging out with your spouse, spending time with them, and keeping up with friends. It's all work. It all takes effort. But
some friends are more work than others.
They are. Some of them make you brew coffee they'll talk on the microphone with you for an hour. So
yeah, which is fine. We like coffee. And speaking of liking coffee, Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Hey, we're still waiting.
But we
have reached tens of people for you.
We have absolutely reached tens of people. And, we have about drank all the coffee. This thing is seriously, and we've had like, oh man, you ought to do a long one, so I'm in line at the elevator or whatever.
Right.
All right, here's your long one. This is an hour and a half is what
is it really?
Yeah,
okay.
For real. So I'm thinking maybe we probably ought to let the mics cool off, I suppose, on this one. But hey, as always, if you have made it this long, thank you. We appreciate that very much. If you're like me and other podcasts, like this is probably a 2 or 3 serving, while you're in the tractor doing whatever type of thing, which is great. And we sure appreciate it. You can certainly find us. Well, obviously, you either know we exist on YouTube or Spotify. Because
jump in quick. We've had some people say they don't know when the episodes come out. If you're on YouTube, you can touch on Spotify, but if you subscribe or hit the notification button, it will let you know when we release one.
Yep. So if you're following along on YouTube, make sure to, what do the kids say? Make sure to mash that subscribe button.
No, I get so annoyed when they say it. I'm trying not to myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to phrase it in a helpful, not a demanding way.
But in all fairness, I mean, it is legit.
Yeah.
If you do subscribe to the channel, and make sure you click the notification button, it will
let you know.
Yeah, it'll ping when we drop something new. So you can do that on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, you can follow us on Spotify, and then it will send you a notification when we drop a new episode on there. If you are listening to us, you're clearly listening to us on one of those 2 platforms, because that's the only place we are right now.
Right.
Hoping to get on Apple Podcast at some point, but we're not there yet. And what else? I guess
we've appreciated all the feedback people have given us.
We have gotten some good feedback. If you have some feedback you want to send, you can comment on any of those social media platforms. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, and you can comment any of those places, the Farmer Tan Podcast. And then you can also, if you would rather send us an email, you can drop us an email, thefarmertanpodcast@gmail.com. And you can certainly ask questions there, or if you have any ideas for guests or whatever you want to talk about, we do take time to respond to all those. So if you want to do that, you can certainly be part of that. So I guess going forward this week, be safe with harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever else you've all got going on, make sure that you take a little time just to take a little time.
Exactly.
We can certainly work ourselves right into the graveyard, and that's not good either. So
don't let life pass you by.
Yeah,
being busy.
Yeah. Don't be busy just to be busy.
Right.
But if you are busy, turn the podcast on. It'll make time go faster.
That's
so,
or not. We don't know.
Yeah, we actually don't know.
It went fast for us.
It did. Yeah, it's like we were just hanging out, and now all of a sudden it's after 10 o'clock, and it's getting dangerously close to bedtime. So
we're kind of past it.
Yeah, we're
in an ideal situation.
Yeah, in an ideal. And I keep thinking, and maybe this will be when we get done with harvest and all that, we need to start doing these in the morning, maybe.
It'd be worth a shot.
I wonder if we would be more fun.
I don't know.
perhaps,
I'm
but
kind of a grouch.
in the morning or now?
Oh, just in general.
In general.
It might be worse in the morning.
Well, it might be.
I have to get some more honest feedback on that.
Well, and it'd have to be on Saturday because otherwise I have to be at work. So
Yeah, that's true.
and I'm not getting up early enough to podcast ahead of work. So
Well,
if we get a damp Saturday, we'll do it in the morning.
hey, there we go.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for riding along with us. We'll pull up to the end here and let you out, and we'll meet you back here next time. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, have a blessed week.